It's the supernatural phenomenon that has sunk its teeth into the world's neck and refused to let go. Chronicling the adventures of Bella Swan, an introspective teen who falls for smoldering vampire Edward Cullen, Twilight and its follow-up, New Moon, unleashed the fanged romance of Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart onto the unsuspecting public and left a collective love bite the world over. Even the director of Twilight, Catherine Hardwicke, admitted the twosome's on-screen sizzle was obvious for all to see from the start, and the result was pure electricity.
You could just feel the chemistry, and you felt the electricity, and, you know, all of us were like, whoa, this could be cool.
Summit Entertainment, the creators behind the films, had good reason to believe Twilight would have more box office bite than your typical teen soap about an awkward high school babe and her cool new mystery beau. But what also set this set of vampire books and adapted films apart from the rest was a massive female audience with a huge appetite for fanged fellas. So it was no surprise to learn that behind the bloody smiles lay a team of talented women hell-bent on telling the tale of Twilight.
Stephanie wrote this book, and so it does come from this female perspective. And, you know, Bella's the main character, so it was really kind of cool that I got to direct the first one, and Melissa Rosenberg wrote it, and so we had the, and Nancy Richardson's the editor, so we had this kind of like chick power, you know, and I think it's been fun, you know, because everywhere we go, all around the world with this project, I see a lot of cool girls come up to me and say, hey, I want to be a director. Now I believe that it could happen.
And by casting some of the hottest, yet relatively unknown cast in Twilight, the scene was set for the Los Angeles premiere of one of the most anticipated cinematic events of the decade. Hundreds of shrieking fans, mostly teenage girls, lined the streets, desperate for a glimpse of glamour Brit Robert Pattinson, who plays sexy vamp Edward Cullen. The self-proclaimed vampires gawked, squealed, and begged for autographs and photos with the stars, whilst others spilled out behind the barricades and across the street from the premiere, hungry for some FaceTime with Pattinson and actor Kristen Stewart, who plays human teenager Bella.
It's a Thursday night, and there are a whole bunch of teenagers here who should be at home studying for finals or something. I don't know what. But there they are screaming in line, going crazy over the fact that Twilight begins at 12:01 a.m. tonight.
Even the stars of the film were trying to explain the film's appeal. If only they could be heard above the screaming masses.
I mean, I think they've just been waiting for such a long time to just have something to connect to with the books instead of just being in their imaginations. So it's the most distracting thing in the world.
So what were the fans so desperate to find out from their otherworldly friends?
What's it like kissing vampires? That's basically the main question.
And your answer?
Don't have one.
Oh, they literally do not ask a single thing. They just, like, most people just scream. Some people cry. I mean, just completely nuts.
Author and life force behind the Twilight series of books, Stephanie Meyer, was more than happy to see her fans in the flesh.
You know, a lot of them, they're really sweet. They don't want anything from me. They're just so happy to say thank you. I mean, I don't feel like I got so much out of the experience of just writing it. So for me, that was enough. And that I could make them happy, too, is really cool. I love that.
Schoolgirls were the first to be gathered into the Twilight fold, drawn in by the all-consuming possessiveness of Bella and Edward's forbidden love. Reading like a confessional, it's been compared to a young girl's diary, loaded with compulsive detail and teen angst. And with the Twilight hype growing every day, Warner Brothers even decided to bump Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince in order to grab a prime date just before Thanksgiving, one of the busiest weekends of the year at movie theaters. But it wasn't just young girls clamoring to get tickets for the Fright Fest of the decade and declaring their love for all things vampiric.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, we are just finding that this book is kind of bringing us back to that time when we were 15, working with soccer moms. We've been passing the book all over the soccer fields. We've left our soccer players at home, and we're here just act like we're 15 tonight.
And there were similar scenes across the other side of the world when the main man himself, Robert Pattinson, made an appearance in London's Leicester Square for the British premiere of Twilight. An Englishman himself, Robert was still coming to grips with his new status as a teenage sex symbol.
No, I mean, I just turn off a place and people scream. It just feels like my job. I don't know. It's like, that's all I do.
Fans waited for hours in the winter cold to catch a glimpse of the tousle-haired star and greeted him and his co-star Kristen Stewart with screams and cheers that eclipsed the LA launch, even surprising Kristen herself.
Yeah, it is much bigger than the one that we had in LA. It's cool because I think our studio was like, don't expect anything, it's not going to be so big over there, and apparently they were wrong. We were all very wrong.
And although the books that inspired the film weren't as popular in the UK as in the US, the film's romantic storyline was still on track to set hearts aflutter and capture the chick flick market, despite its cast of unknowns and the scant appeal for guys. The global success of the film came as a complete surprise to all those involved, not least because of its lack of big-budget special effects.
I made a bet as a joke with my manager to say that it made, like, how much it would make opening weekend, and it made that much. It's like, it made 80 million, it was like 5 million off. Like, no one expected it. It beat Bond opening weekend. It's like, what? Yeah, it's completely nuts.
Yeah, we had no idea. We signed on to the movie thinking it was like sort of an indie. I mean, we knew that we had a very devoted fan base, but we thought it was like very exclusive. So yeah, this is crazy.
But the fans knew why they were there and who they were there to see, namely our Pats himself.
His hair, he's sexy. His hair! He's so beautiful in his own way. He's like unique and he's British. That's why we love him.
Even the man of the moment himself was struggling to explain why Twilight was causing scenes of vampire mania never witnessed on this scale before.
I guess vampires in general. I think people sort of outside the genre, isn't it? I think that's why. There's a lot of people are always going to relate to that, but you know, they're not wanted by anyone. They're sort of parasites on humanity, so I guess that's kind of why. But Twilight, I just think it's just a very unique story. I think it's very personal. I've gone deaf. Yeah, I think it's just very personal. People really believe in the characters, and that's why.
Of course, there was a time when none of us had ever even heard of Robert Pattinson. As far-fetched as that may now sound, the man with the blue eyes, coiffed hair, and big eyebrows got his biggest break when he appeared as Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire after struggling to get noticed in smaller roles.
It's huge, the whole project, so that's kind of intimidating, but you get used to being... and also, it's a kind of it's a machine. It's like an oiled machine before, because they've done so many already. So you kind of just have to fit in, basically.
Getting a taste of what it was like to be part of a blockbuster film franchise with fans around the globe no doubt prepared Robert for what was to come in his very near future.
When 500 million people or whatever bought the book, and someone's trying to make a film of it, like, it's going to be, like, there's a lot of people putting a lot of thought into it and stuff. So I think a lot of people are attracted just to the spectacle of making it. It's a huge budget, big action movie, which just has kids as the lead parts, and so and it's a 7-part series, which has never been done before.
But just when the Harry Potter frenzy was beginning to subside, Pattinson found himself in a new tween favorite, one with plenty of bite.
It's really strange because there was a period where it just all died out, and then there was a period where, like, I felt the change, and it's like, you're that guy from Twilight, where it used to be you're the guy from Harry Potter, which it's just a really strange experience. But now, like, I mean, so much more recognition and stuff in the street from Twilight. I mean, and it hasn't even come out yet, which is just the most bizarre thing. 6 months away.
But no one could have predicted the extraordinary Pattinson effect. And when you have your own kisses being auctioned off for charity, you know you've arrived big time.
I think there's no dad in the world who wouldn't mind Robert Pattinson meeting his daughter, taking a picture with his daughter and just giving her a gentle kiss on the cheek. Somebody in London, New York, or Los Angeles, there's got to be a dad good enough to bid on that. So I'm going to let Sharon start, and somebody's got to bid on that. And if somebody wants to top us who's over 21 years old, then forget the teenagers. They'll come over and kiss you right now.
Started at $5.
It's
$10,000. Who wants $10,000? I got 15 who go for 20. I got 15 bid. Don't turn your back on me.
And if it goes well, maybe you'll go to something more.
20. Thank you. We back to 25. 25. Thank you. 25. Or 25. Or should we do two each for 20? Or two for $20,000. And I'd like to say, I'd like to give you a kiss for being so gracious and generous and such a good sport. Thank you so much.
The Pattinson Express train was taking no passengers with his hot-blooded alter ego now lodged firmly in every young female's consciousness. It was only a matter of time before the focus shifted to Robert's private life.
Yeah, well, you know, Robert Pattinson is certainly someone who everyone wants to talk about, but he's very, very private, so there's a bit of mystery about who he's dating. There's lots of speculation as to whether or not it's one of his co-stars, but because we don't really know what he's doing, it sort of, in some respects, fuels the fire. In other respects, we just don't know. But he talked about when he goes out, there's all these women around him, and they're really just almost like rabid, but he appreciates the energy. He says it's very inspiring, and there's a lot of energy he gets from that.
And when it came to talk of Robert's connections with his co-stars, the world's press trained their lenses on the buzz surrounding one co-star in particular, namely Kristen Stewart, who had already built up an impressive acting CV. Since starring as a child in films like The Panic Room and Cold Creek Manor, she'd also put in a cameo appearance in Jumper, before signing up for a comedic role in the film Adventureland.
Yeah, we did this before I even knew about Twilight. I don't know, I can only do a movie that, unless I can really lose myself, I just think that I'm ridiculous. Nobody wants to see Kristen in a movie. It's sort of, and all of the comedy in this is so rooted in its characters and in like the reality of the story. I never felt like I was telling a joke. I would be beat red and like, you know, it wouldn't be funny. And, So I'm not going the comedic route now. I'm sort of the straight man in this movie anyway. I don't take the credit for any of the funny.
But many of Kristen's co-stars disagreed.
That's not true. That's very not true. Look at her. She's gorgeous. I can't stop staring at her. She's amazing. She's so funny in this movie. She's great, and I disagree with her on that.
I beg to differ. You know, I think oftentimes the funniest thing or the funniest emotion you can play is the reality of the situation. So, you know, I think, and that being said, everyone has comedic chops to some degree.
In fact, it was while filming Adventureland, Kristen got the call that would change her life forever.
One day she came to set and said, "Oh, the director of this movie came and auditioned me, and it looks like I got the part, and it's a vampire movie. It seems cool."
Another stellar star to emerge from the depths of the Twilight phenomenon is the brooding Taylor Lautner, who plays Jacob. However, with the sequel New Moon looming on the horizon, Taylor had some serious beefing up to do in order to reprise his role.
Right, I mean, we all know that Jacob's character transforms mentally, but physically as well, from Twilight to New Moon. And when I was filming Twilight, I knew that I had to do something about that, or I wasn't going to fit Jacob's description. And I don't want to do that to the fans. So immediately after filming Twilight, I started hitting the gym, trying to put on as much muscle as possible, and it all worked out.
Taylor Lautner's teen appeal was secured with a brief but highly publicized fling with fellow teen star Taylor Swift. With him and Robert Pattinson chewing up screen time in Twilight and the upcoming New Moon, there was a serious decision facing female fans all over the world. You were either Team Edward or Team Jacob. New Moon saw director Chris Weitz come on board and stamp his seal of approval on the highly anticipated sequel that was destined to set hearts alight and female pulses pumping. And when it got down to what the fans were after, Chris knew all too well what to dish up.
Actually, there's a lot of the key, well, there's two key romances, really. There's a lot of Edward and Bella in this movie, but there's also this great new element of Edward and Jacob, and Taylor has done this incredible job of embodying the character. So, no, I don't think fans who want loads of Rob Pattinson will be disappointed, and I don't think fans who are keen to see Jacob will be disappointed either.
Chris was constantly amazed at both the professionalism and dedication of all the young stars, particularly with the amount of pressure piling up on them.
I think it's really quite a challenge to suddenly be thrust into the limelight to the extent that these young people have. And I don't know how I would deal with it myself, frankly, even at the age of 39. But to be 19 or to be 23 and to be chased around, although it sounds like a lot of fun, is actually not only dangerous, but occasionally a bit, nerve-wracking.
And from the actor's point of view, there were definite advantages to having someone new at the helm.
I think it's awesome that we get to switch up the directing styles for each movie.
Yeah, I think that's cool too. Chris is like one of the most nurturing guys. He's so concerned that everyone's comfortable and like happy, and that he's doing the right thing to make sure that the environment that you're in is the one that's going to give him the most, like in terms of performance. And for me, in the whole series, this is definitely like the lowest that she gets, and so it's nice to have someone who is just so considerate.
In the Twilight Saga New Moon, Edward Cullens and his family leave Forks, Washington, after Bella's blood is shed in a minor accident during her birthday celebration, which proves too intense for the vampire family. At first heartbroken, Bella finds comfort in reckless living and forms an even closer friendship with Jacob Black. The Cullens may be gone, but Bella continues to face danger in different ways. When Robert Pattinson arrived in sunny Cannes to promote the latest installment of the Twilight Saga, the female feeding frenzy started all over again. The difference this time, though, underneath all the screaming, was that the pale, dashing man from the British Isles finally seemed to be getting used to all of the attention.
I guess I've kind of a certain amount of acceptance. I mean, you can't just keep going, what's going on? I don't get it. But I mean, it just kind of gets old after a while. But I mean, it is still strange though. I mean, I just don't get the immediate recognition thing where, like, you know, I was in Frankfurt airport yesterday and like people just immediately know who you are. It's never like, are you? It's just like, can I have a photo? It's like, did you not? I'm not him. I get that all the time.
Reprising his role as teenage vampire Edward Cullen, this time Robert found it easy to dip his toe back into Twilight waters.
Different experience working on it. Because I think mainly because I'm a supporting role in it, and so I felt pretty relaxed all the time. I didn't really have to hold it. So not that I had to last time. Kristen essentially holds the movie, but like I know I felt way more stressed out last time, and this time I knew how everything was working. And because of the success of the last one, no one gave me any stress about anything. They were just like, yeah, just do your thing. So it was really nice. It was a really nice experience working on it.
But in an answer to concerns about security issues on set, Robert shrugged off rumors that he had been swamped by obsessive fans.
I think it was actually we had tons and tons of security, but then at the end of the day, actually hardly anyone knew we were shooting all the time. It was kind of unnecessary. I'm walking around with like 3 guys following me around all the time, and like no one ever turned up. There was never any infiltrators.
Refreshingly, as often seen with British actors, Robert seems to have maintained a level head when it comes to all the Hollywood hype. And even though these days he's getting used to the role he has to play off screen, that of superstar, he still puts a cap on the amount of information he's willing to share with the press.
I kind of try and limit it as much as possible because I don't really have much to say about anything. I think I've used up all my anecdotes. I just start stealing other people's. I just watch other people's interviews and then just say what they say. But I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit worrying when he's like, that guy's like a tape. He doesn't even have a personality. I mean, yeah.
Taking its success to a whole other level, Twilight was predictably a huge hit at Comic-Con in San Diego. A huge convention for movie geeks the world over, Comic-Con gives fans and stars an excuse to mingle and celebrate the movies. And of course, when the stars of the Twilight series made an appearance, they set off a stampede.
I'm excited this time around. I mean, the first time, we really had no idea what it was or what was going to happen, so we kind of walked in and was just blown away. This time we know what's coming, so we're just really excited to be back and see all the fans again.
Yeah, no, I hate how nervous I get, but we're showing part of the movie, which makes me more nervous, but at the same time, like, a reason to be here, so we're, like, pretty excited.
Yeah, we get nervous because we want to, you know, please the fans, don't want to disappoint them, so it gets a little nerve-wracking at points, but for the most part, it's good.
Meanwhile, Robert, too, was just trying to make sense of the fanatics and the way they worship at the altar of all things Twilight.
It is a very strange, I mean, I don't know how much really bigger it can get than now, because I mean, it's like every day there's someone who comes up and says something about Twilight to me now, so, and I don't even look like I do in the movie in real life, so like.
And inevitably, what's a teen vampire phenomenon without the follow-up cash cow called merchandising? The first cab off the Twilight rank was Mattel, ready to take a bite out of the series with the release of Edward Cullen and Bella Swan Barbie dolls. With teens and twihards the world over falling for the story of a teenager who falls for a vampire, it was no surprise to see sales soared way above initial projections. Twilight and New Moon have stirred up such an appetite for star-crossed romances and action-packed finales that the melodramatic scene is set for the next book in the series Breaking Dawn to be split and shot across 2 massive movies, treating the movie world's most passionate fan base to even more rib-breaking, stud-strutting, vampire-loving goodness.